Are you or someone you know looking to buy or sell a home? When you use a HomeGain Realtor to buy or sell a home, you can get $150. Visit homegain.com and click on the Promo 150 banner at the top of the page to get started. Compare HomeGain Realtors and choose your favorite. Complete your home purchase or sale transaction with a HomeGain Realtor, and HomeGain will pay you $150. Get started today by going to homegain.com. Welcome back, Real Estate Radio. I'm your host, Ryan Sloper, joined by my guest, Louis Cammarosano, the general manager of HomeGain. Quick reminder that Real Estate Radio is designed to build the Washington, D.C. Metro's housing and credit markets one house at a time. If you ever have any questions or concerns about anything we talk about today, or any other just general questions regarding to finance, credit, or just basic real estate questions, the best number to reach us is the off-air number. It's 877-245-2030. That's 877-245-2030. I want to jump into, so much of what the talk is that short sales are actually, they're becoming more of more commonplace, and we're seeing more of them. The banks are allowing them to go through. They're pushing them through in quicker turn times. And a lot of people are just like, well, what can I do to really put myself in a position to make sure that my short sale is successful? And I kind of put together a list of a couple different things that will definitely help you or increase your chances of, allowing that short sale to go through. But I do want to, point out that on average, and this is according to Realty Track, short sales sell at about a 21% discount. Now, that's obviously going to vary depending upon where you're located. Obviously, in the DC metro area, I would say it's probably nowhere close to 21% discount. But in areas such as Arizona, Las Vegas, Florida, you're probably going to see a 21% discount, if not more. And as of right now, the national numbers are that 22.5% of houses in the U.S. are currently underwater. So basically, we have about 1 in every 4. So if you just look down your street, basically 1 in every 4 are underwater and really don't have any options. So
that's nationwide, Ryan?
Yes, nationwide, 22.5%. So, you're looking at almost 1 in 4, which is really it's an incredible number when you think about it, Louis. You look out your house and you look every 4 houses, you should have somebody that's upside down.
Well, in some neighborhoods, it's probably 1 in 2.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And like I said, it's all going to be really where you live and what the job situation is, I think. Here in the Washington, D.C. metro area, we've actually been lucky because a lot of the people that were maybe just 10% underwater or so over the last couple of years have actually gotten that back and are now able to get out of their home and break even and make that move on to their dream home or the home that they want to live in, until retirement. So it's benefited a lot of those folks, but still the majority are still underwater. Now, I want to say that, I think a lot of people put too much stock in, and just necessarily the hardship letter that you're going to write to the bank to get them to see that you have a hardship to be eligible for the short sale. And for those of you who hear the term short sale and are not really familiar with what that even means, all that means is that if somebody owes more on their house than it's currently worth, they are considered upside down. That's industry jargon. Or you might be eligible to short sell your home. Now, the short sale comes in because you're shorting the payoff to the lender. So if you owe the lender $200,000 and your home's only worth $150,000, by the time the real estate fees and attorney fees and everything else come out, it might be $140,000. You have a $60,000 shortfall there. The lender is accepting a short payoff, which hence the word short sale. That's where that comes from. Now, many people obviously know at this point that in order to have a successful short sale, you probably have to have a good hardship or a good story. Okay. Now, I don't say a story as in it has to be a made up story. It needs to be a real story. But you have to be able to show the lender that you're going through a tough time and that if you continue down this path, that more than likely it's going to end in foreclosure. Okay. So I think the big thing here is, though, when real estate agents are marketing or putting your house on the market, if you're in a possible short sale transaction, you need to really set the expectations with the potential buyer. I think a lot of agents are saying, being unrealistic and saying that, oh, yeah, we're going to get this done in 30 days, 30, 45 at the most, when they know all along that it's probably going to be anywhere from 60 to 120 to even 180 days. And to set the expectations up front with the buyer, you're doing yourself a great service because if they understand, hey, you're going to get this property at a discount. And the reason why you're going to get it at a discount is because you have to be willing to wait. But if it's not said up front, I'd say a majority of a lot of these transactions that don't go through are because the buyer ends up falling out before they can get to the table. So, Lewis, I mean, let's just take, for instance, if you have a couple, a transaction that's $200,000, agent has said, look, you're going to, probably, if the house is worth, let's just call it 150, and they think that you can get a contract. They put it on the market for 130. So they get a contract at 130, knowing that it's a little bit below market. It goes to the lender. Lender sits on it for 60, 90 plus days, doesn't really do anything. Finally, they send somebody out to do a best price offering on the property to determine what they think is the value. And the bank comes back and says, no, well, we think it's really worth 150. Okay, so now it's a $20,000 difference between what the contract says and what the bank said. What do you think the majority of buyers are going to do at that point, Lewis? If it's $20,000 difference?
Well, they would buy it, right?
Well, it depends on what the perceived value of the house is. You know what I mean? If they think that they're still getting a deal, they'll buy it. But like, let's say that property is really only worth 150. You know what I mean? And the bank comes back and that's the value.
Oh no, of course the bank will push themselves away from a deal.
They'll put exactly, and then the buyer is then like, well, if I wanted it at 130. You know what I mean? So They'll end up walking. So that 60, 90 plus days that went by that the buyer was hanging in there, all for nothing. So then
the bank doesn't understand how to maintain the value in their home. They're just trying to extract value, but they don't understand they have to market the home and get the right price.
Absolutely.
Because they're already thinking, wait a minute, I'm supposed to get $200 for this.
Yep. And so then that buyer walks away. Okay, so now they have maybe not made their payment for 90 or 120 days. This is another misconception I want to address right now too, is that some people assume that they have to be late on their mortgage in order to qualify for a short sale. That's just not the truth. Now, some lenders may require that you miss a payment before they'll even deal with you, but that doesn't necessarily mean it has to be done that way. If you can show a hardship or the hardship is coming, then you might be eligible for that short sale. A lot of people just say, well, I'm not dead broke yet, so I don't know if I qualify. Well, that's, if you can have money in your bank and still be eligible for the short sale because you might be spending more out than you're bringing in. That might be your hardship. And every one of these cases is going to be different. And that's why the best advice that I can tell you is to reach out to a professional that knows your local market, that knows the short sale market, because there's so many little details. Having the agent set the expectations with the other agent for what the timeline of the short sale is going to be. I mean, that's huge. If they tell the person 30 or 60 days and and they know really it's going to be 180, then that's an issue.
I've heard that's common.
And it's very common because
just to get the listing.
Just to get the listing and just to get a contract on that property, they tell them that, and not realizing that the buyer really wanted to be into something in a minimum or the least amount 90 days. I mean, you have to be upfront, and that's why a lot of these transactions are falling through.
You can't even say because it is subject to the bank.
Always subject to the bank. It's always subject to the bank. But there's a couple things that you can do to be proactive on the buyer side, like working with a good lender that understands short sales. Because one of the things that I would say in a situation like right now, I have a couple people that are in short sale transactions. We haven't gotten the bank approval yet. And people are like, well, a lot of the time we want to wait to do home inspections and appraisals and all that until after we get the bank approval. Well, I would say in some cases that's true, especially if you're strapped for money. You don't have that much money to be forking out another $1,000 just to find out that the bank's not going to approve it. But then when you look at it from the flip side, Lewis, it could be very good because if you order the appraisal, right, prior to the bank coming back with an approval, and that appraisal comes in lower, I would say you have about a 90% chance that the bank's going to have to lower the price of the appraisal.
That's true. That's good strategy.
You know what I mean? And you're being proactive about it, and then it's not going to come down to what the bank wants to charge, because then if the bank says, well, you already signed a contract, you were agreeing to 160, and then you actually had an appraisal come back and it was actually like 140.
Can't do 160. Won't lend it to me at that price.
Right. Exactly, but they're less likely, to do anything if you don't have an appraisal already established. So that's
now they have to go through another whole process to try to get 160. That buyer walks away, and you're talking 6 months, a year later, and they still won't get 160.
Yeah, so I would tell you that's a very effective strategy right there. A lot of people don't think of it that way, but I'd say it's worth the cost of the $450 because it might save you $10,000-$20,000.
Right.
And I think that many people aren't thinking about it that way. I can tell you I'm a firm believer that that's from the buyer perspective of what you should be doing. Now, in taking that a step further, you also have home inspection that you could actually do ahead of time before the bank gets their full approval. Guess what? If if you have the home inspection done ahead of time and you find some things wrong with the house, they might then say, well, okay, we now see that the value of the house should be lower because there's all these things wrong with it.
And sometimes it is that way because the person who's in there who's short selling isn't taking care of it anymore.
Absolutely. And so if you're taking these steps, if you're being proactive, the bank doesn't have to necessarily agree with it, but I can tell you right now, if a lender's appraisal comes back and it's X amount, the bank's going to have to see that as justification because, especially on an FHA loan, once you do an appraisal with FHA, that appraisal attaches to that property for 6 months. So it doesn't matter what other lender they go to. They can't get an FHA loan because that's going to be the value that's determined there. So very effective strategy. And I think, like I said, this is concentrating more on the buyer side. But, in order to have any effective transaction, it's smart to look at it from both sides. You have to have a seller that knows what they're doing and a buyer that knows what they're doing to basically have a contract that gets written and then can actually close. And I think a lot of the drawbacks that people have on short sales are that these are not closing. Well, we're coming up. We got to wrap up the show. We're winding down here. But, Louis, I want to thank you again for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
If anyone would like to check out HomeGain, it's a great place to start your home search. You can connect with agents on there and determine who you would be best fit for you to work with you. Where can they do that, Louis?
They can go to homegain.com and check out the Find a Realtor portion on the upper left-hand column. And also they can get a free instant home valuation, or they can search homes for sale or get home improvement tips, all at home improvement tips at homegain.com.
Perfect, Louis. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Ryan.
Guys, thank you again for tuning in this Monday. We will be back again next Monday from 2 to 3 p.m. If you have any questions, concerns, or real estate needs, please reach out to me. Thank you for listening to Real Estate Radio.